Hey everybody, this is TJR. Over the weekend, U2 released a new advanced single from their upcoming album, Songs of Experience. The song is called American Soul. A lot of people asked me, what my thoughts on it were. I would definitely want to talk about the new song, but I also wanted to do a follow-up on the last video I did. There were a lot of comments about that video, and I do appreciate all the comments. But I wanted to clarify some things that I said. I'm not 100% sure that everybody quite understood what I was saying. There were a couple of people who said, how can you judge the album on just 3 songs? And I thought I made it very clear in the video that I was not judging the entire album. This was not a review of the album. This video was primarily just, first of all, a video announcing the fact that the release date had been announced, which was December 1st. At that point, we didn't know. And also a reaction to the 3 advanced singles that had been released prior. And it was just about that. I'm pretty sure that in my video I mentioned that I'm reserving final judgment until I hear the whole album. And even on the songs that I wasn't 100% sure of, I said I might feel very differently about them when I hear them in context with the rest of the album. Context can mean a lot with an album as to how you hear certain songs. A lot of strong negative comments were sparked by this video. A number of people, either stated or implied that pretty much everything since, Achtung Baby was drivel and, had no merit. And others implied that that's what I was stating, and that's not what I was stating at all. Now, certainly since 2000, since All That You Cannot Leave Behind, moving forward, none of those albums have affected me as strongly as the previous catalog prior to 2000. And for me, this means everything from October going all the way to Zooropa. Those albums all affected me a whole lot stronger than anything from 2000 since. Now, that doesn't mean that I think those albums are no good or that they're without merit. I think they're good albums. They just haven't affected me as strongly as the previous catalog. None of them have. But I still say that those albums are pretty good. In fact, I believe I said this in the last video, but I still say that even a decent album by U2, or what I think is a decent album, is better than what a lot of today's hit makers think is their best work. In the last video, I did comment on how their songwriting, since 2000 moving forward, their songwriting became less expansive and more just very straightforward and commercial. And there's nothing wrong with writing very straightforward and commercial songs. I have done that myself, so long as you're not forcing it to be that way. Some songs I felt like it's a little more forced, and some of it's also just the production. I feel like sometimes the production on the newer albums feels like it's trying a little too hard to appeal to commercial radio. Once again, there's nothing wrong with using those kind of production techniques so long as you're not forcing it, so long as it fits the track, so long as it sounds natural, like it should be that way. One comparison I'd like to make is Elton John. Elton John is in my top 3, favorite artist bands, of all time. And I think that everything he made during the 70s, with the exception of his very first album, of course, Empty Sky, was brilliant. And he just had this stretch during the 70s all the way through 1980s Blue Moves where him and Bernie Taupin just wrote these amazing, amazing songs. Now, he did flounder for a while, for a couple decades. Most critics will agree with that. Even Elton John agrees with that. And then in 2000, suddenly it was like he remembered who he was, and he put out songs from the West Coast. And suddenly all the critics were saying, Elton John has come back. The Elton John of the 70s has come back. And I had to agree, yes, he has. He's made a lot of really good albums since then. Have those albums been as good as the stuff he did in the 70s? On the whole, I would say no. Are they good albums? Yes, they're good albums. Are they worth listening to? Yes. Are they worth buying? Yes. That period of time during the 70s when he was making albums like, Madman Across the Water and Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, that was just an amazingly exceptional time period. And even Elton himself has said, that 10 years was just a period of time where he just was creatively on fire. And he said, I don't think I'll ever be able to recapture that fire ever again in my lifetime. Even he says this. Now that doesn't mean he still can't create great songs with Bernie Taupin. Of course he's made, great songs. They're just nothing's been quite as strong as that stuff though. But he still has made very, very, very good songs and very worthwhile albums. And I don't know, maybe a good analogy is kind of akin to like an athlete. There's a period of time where an athlete is in their prime and they're just amazing. And then later on, they're still in great shape. They can still, probably outrun or outthrow the best of us average folks here. But they're not in their prime. And I kind of look at it that way to a certain extent. Maybe, a musical artist is not in their prime, but that doesn't mean they don't make good music. And I feel that way about U2. There was this prime period. Maybe it's over. Now, maybe there will be a sudden explosion again. You never know. I hope it happens. But in the meantime, I am grateful for the albums that U2 has created since then. I do like them. I do feel they've created some good songs and some very meaningful songs. The albums as a whole do not move me or touch me in the same way that those earlier albums did, but I still appreciate these albums. And, I feel that we should be grateful for U2 for having given us the great masterpieces that they've given us, like the Joshua Tree, like the Unforgettable Fire. But that doesn't mean we should discount these later works. I think these are, this is good music. I do sometimes, once again, and I said this in the last video, suspect that their later albums have been victimized by the loudness wars. And No Line on the Horizon being the best example. The CD was boring. Well, once I heard it on vinyl, I was like, wow, this sounds great. To this day, I think maybe I should hear Songs of Innocence on vinyl. I don't even know if you can get it anymore. I've been heavily debating whether or not I want to get Songs of Experience on vinyl. It is a lot more expensive. On Amazon, it's about like $38. I mean, just round it off to $40. That's a lot for a vinyl. Of course, I do know this is duplicating the deluxe CD edition where you get all the bonus tracks. But I am thinking about it. Not sure if I'm going to do it yet. I feel like the compression issues of the previous albums have been kind of remedied more. Songs of Innocence didn't sound as heavily compressed as No Line on the Horizon, but it would benefit if I heard it on vinyl. We'll see what happens with that. So let's now move on to the new song American Soul. I really, really like this track. I was almost instantly turned on by it, and the more I've heard it, the more I've liked it. It's weird. I don't know how to explain it, but there's moments when I feel like they're taking some of the cliches of 80s pop metal and kind of twisting it around. That's not what the entire song is made of, but there are aspects of it that feels like they listened to some 80s pop metal and just really kind of twisted it up to a certain extent. I love the little spoken word part at the beginning as well, just like I love the spoken word at the ending of the song Blackout. And by the way, I want to go back to that too. When I first talked about the original three songs, I said that I liked Blackout the best. As time has gone on, I am liking Blackout more and more and more. Both these two tracks are really resonating very strong with me. You're the Best Thing About Me, I still like the acoustic version better. The band version is just kind of okay to me. I don't know what the difference is in production. It's the same song, but the acoustic version is just speaking to me more. The other one, Get Out of Your Own Way, it's a pleasant song, but it's not having, or I should say it's not eliciting a real visceral reaction out of me. But that's 2 out of 2 as far as I'm concerned. That's 2 out of 2, so that's not too bad. Those are good odds in my opinion. And like I said, am I going to get the album? Of course I'm going to get the album. It's U2 for crying out loud. These guys have given us some of the best, music in popular music history, in the last, 20 years or so that they've been doing this, or 25, 30 years they've been doing this. Excuse me, I'm losing track of time here. But, and like I've said before, even a decent album by U2 is still way more compelling than a lot of albums by today's hit makers. So yeah, you're darn right I'm going to get it. One commenter also stated to me that he felt that the real problem was that Bono doesn't have the voice he used to have. And it's true, he doesn't. It's unfair to expect him at his age to have the same voice that he had when he was in his 20s. After all the years of touring that he has done, it's just unfair to expect that. Elton John doesn't have the voice he had when he was in his 20s, but Bono has learned how to adapt his singing style, not just to the new material, but to the old material as well. And I've watched U2 live over the last few years during some of their tours, and they still deliver it, and that includes Bono. They still deliver it. And I think that's why, one of the reasons why they're still, one of the biggest rock and roll bands, if not the biggest rock and roll band in the world. And there is one other thing I want to say. Even though the newer songs don't maybe hit me as strongly as the older stuff does, I still feel that U2 is still trying. They're still trying to write the best songs they can. I may not like all the production choices, because sometimes, like with Songs of Innocence, I found that the acoustic versions came off better than the fully produced band version. So sometimes they make production choices that I don't get, and they don't appeal to me. Maybe that's a barrier. I know I'm not the only one who feels this way, because a lot of people did agree that they don't feel the same reaction they got from the older stuff. But I still feel like they're really trying to write the best songs they can. I also feel like they should go back to a kind of a less is more kind of approach with the lyrical writing. The lyrics have become a lot more dense. Now, some will consider this a really good thing, and I personally am the kind who likes less is more. I would rather hear you say more with less words. And I think there's a whole video that I could make about that subject on its own. So have you heard American Soul? What do you think? I'm curious to know. And I'm looking forward to December 1st when I can check out the whole album. Thanks everyone for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. Bye.